right, hey everyone, Jeff here at StopThePirates.blogspot.com. It's Monday before the big day, the big vote. Get out the vote, get out there and vote. Everybody's voting. It's the most important vote of your lifetime. Get out there and do it. As a U.S. citizen, and the United States is a corporation, and so is your name in all capital letters. It's the only thing they have dominion over. You know, there was never anything known as a U.S. citizen up until after the Civil War in 1868 with the 14th Amendment under the Reconstruction Act. Because the Civil War, the southern states wanted to secede because they were like sick of the bullshit. And the North came to them and said, hey, you got all the money down here, you need to pay up these foreign bankers. And they said, fuck you, we're going to start our own country. And then it was on. And then the Vatican brought in all these troops, you know, from Ireland and Scotland, Britain. That's what the war was. It was about a complete takeover of this entire country, bringing it back under the rule of the crown. A lot of people don't know that. Well, you should. Yeah, so before the Civil War, you were just a citizen of whatever state or territory you lived in. A U.S. citizen now is a 14th Amendment citizen, and you're basically a slave. See, the 14th Amendment outlawed mandatory servitude or compulsory servitude or slavery. But it didn't outlaw volunteer. You could volunteer to be a slave. Voluntary servitude, which is what you do when you register to vote and become a U.S. citizen. So, some information about the 14th Amendment. Just throw it out here really quick so you know what you're voting for. What's a bond servant? To cover the debt in 1933 and future debt, the corporate government determined and established the value of the future labor of each individual in its jurisdiction to be between $630,000 and $1 million. A bond for that amount is set on each certificate of live birth. The certificate is bundled together into sets and then placed as securities on the open market. These certificates are then purchased by the Federal Reserve and/or foreign bankers. The purchaser is the holder of the title. And this process made each and every person in this jurisdiction a bond servant. None is more enslaved than those who falsely believe that they are free. I'll just say something before we get into this. If you allow anybody to inject something into your body that you don't approve of, you're nothing more than a sheep or a cattle on a farm. I mean, seriously. There is no virus. There's no nothing. It's a complete hoax. This corporation is going into the vaccine business. They're taking over the world. U.S. citizens are chattel property are belligerents in the field and are subject to its jurisdiction, which is Washington, D.C. U.S. citizens are 14th Amendment citizens, implemented by the Civil Rights Act of 1866, originally established for the newly freed slaves. This is to say, now slaves of the corporate government plantation. So all the freed slaves became U.S. citizens. Now, you didn't automatically, if you were alive at that time, have to become a U.S. citizen. But they made it so it looked attractive to the people. And slowly, drip, 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 people signed up for it and became a U.S. citizen. And now they own the whole country. They don't even own the whole country. And the whole thing's a complete fraud. It's just amazing. I think they paid, which is funny, I think they paid about $630 for each freed black slave, and they signed them up as U.S. citizens. So we're all basically black slaves now at this time. I mean, nothing against black people, but I mean, that's where we find ourselves. We're sharecroppers. Today, almost all mothers, black or white, unknowingly inform on their babies take a look at the so-called birth certificate, certificate of live birth, where the mother signs, and you will see the title of the box stating in small print, mother or other informant. What's an informant? An informant is like a police informant, someone who informs on somebody of a crime. The word other makes the mother an informant. By signing the birth certificate as an informer, she contracts with the government, putting her child and her child's future labor as collateral for a national debt, which is servitude slavery. The father or mother can rescind the contract within 3 business days, which is truth in lending laws. Since the birth certificate neither lists the father as the husband, nor lists the wife's acceptance of the father's surname as her own, but has the mother's maiden name instead. Look at your birth certificate. You'll see it. Even if your parents were married, your mother had to put her maiden name up there. The baby is considered a bastard child, and bastards are therefore under the care and control of the priest rule democracy and can be taken from the mother at any time. The hospitals receive a fairly large monetary benefit, $3,000 more or less per child, from the corporate government for having birth certificates filled out and signed. The primary control of and custody of infants is with the government. Tillman versus Roberts. Your legal name is a prisoner of war name. Fictitious nom de jure name for a non-living entity, also referred to as the straw man or transmitting utility. John Doe, name in all capital letters, a.k.a. all caps, which is a formal called, it's a format in a format called capitis deminutium maxima. Capitis diminutio maxima, maximum diminished status is what that means in Latin. Means that a man's condition changes from freedom to bondage and becomes a slave or an item of inventory. Black's Law Dictionary, Revised, 4th edition, 1968. A fictional persona being surety for the debt is a fiction in commerce, also known as ens legis, which means legal entity, is non-human, civilly dead. U.S. citizens were declared enemies of the U.S. by Franklin Delano Roosevelt by Executive Order number 2040 and ratified by Congress on March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1. FDR changed the meaning of the Trading with the Enemy Act on December 6, 1917 by changing the word without to citizens within the United States. So people become surety for the debt by a number of different ways. One is by a birth certificate, when the baby's footprint is placed thereon before it touches the land. The certificate is recorded at the county recorder, then sent to a Secretary of State, which sends it to the Bureau of Census and Commerce Department. This process converts a man's life, labor, and property to an asset of the U.S. government when this person receives a benefit from the government, such as a driver's license, food stamps, free mail delivery, etc. This person becomes a fictional persona in commerce. The birth certificate is an unrevealed trust instrument originally designed for the children of the newly freed black slaves after the 14th Amendment. The U.S. has the ability to tax and regulate commerce. The government-issued birth certificate is now a registered security, which initially has an estimated value of $1 million. They are circulated around the world as collateral for loans and entered on the asset side of the ledger, just like any other security. This is why they are initially filed with the Commerce Department. The central banks now have a negotiable instrument against which credit is advanced by the international funding community, namely the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Bank of International Settlements, Bank of England, and Federal Bank of America, etc. So when you register to vote, it's an admission that the declarant is subject to the exclusive legislative power of the corporate Congress and is a 14th Amendment citizen residing in a federal territory. So you're just a fiction. You're voting via this fiction, this corporate fiction, your name in all capital letters, that has a residence inside of the District of Columbia in one of the federal zones. And the District of Columbia only has 3 electoral college votes for everybody. So it's futile. Rather than remaining a state national, one becomes a U.S. citizen participating in the rebellion by voting in the corporate government system and or signing up for benefits and privileges. This is the fucked up thing. If you register to vote with this foreign corporation, you're actually committing a crime. It's called misprision. It's treason. That's why you're the enemy. MISPRISION. Look it up. Stop and think for a minute as to voting. When you vote for an office to be filled in the United States of America or one of its sub-corporations, state of blah, blah, California, whatever, you have voted to fill a fictional corporate position designed to represent the corporation, not a political position to represent the people. All elections in the United States are nothing more than proxy fights in a boardroom. The elite and the major media have the people pitting the Democrats against Republicans and vice versa. The Democrats get in, the people find negative consequences and then vote Republican. The Republicans get in, and the people find negative consequences and then vote Democrats in the next election. In the meantime, the one world order elite agenda is being fulfilled. People have to wake up and realize that this is a corporation doing business disguised as a form of government, and it's not the government originally instituted in the 1700s. So stop playing their game. There's a quote by Joseph Stalin. You know, comrades, I think that in regard to this, I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how. But what is extraordinarily important is this: who will count the votes and how? I've gone over this before too, is that they need to get you to vote every 4 years. Why 4 years? Why Because a UCC1 financing statement is only good for 5 years. And they have to fill out a new one for you. And that's what the voter registration is. You're testifying under penalty of perjury that you are a U.S. citizen. And then they can take that and use it as an adhesion contract to take out loans. It's just like when you're buying a car. Well, anyway. Anyway, I'm sure everybody's going to go out and vote anyway because they don't believe me because I'm full of shit. I don't know anything. I've only been studying this for the last 15 years. I mean, you have to ask yourself. I mean, I know growing up that people didn't vote like this. It was not that big of a deal. But now it's this huge deal. I don't know. If you think if Donald Trump gets in that everything's going to get fixed, I mean, look at the last 4 years, nothing got done. This is going to get worse. More divisive, more fucked up, more censorship, more lockdowns, more bioweapons. They have vaccines for days. If you let them get away with this first vaccine, they're going to give you for free. It's never going to end, man. It is never going to end. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Go to stopthepirates.blogspot.com.